The Organic Intellectuals Network is a collective of activists, of revolutionaries, of organizers, of people working within our communities who are engaged in the efforts towards achieving liberation in general, not only for we the people here in Kenya, not only for we the people in the various communities that exist here in Kenya, but also for the people throughout the continent and even beyond. And how Organic Intellectuals Network operates is that it tries to facilitate or to help develop a cadre of organizers who are first of all rooted within our communities and who generate knowledge based on their experiences as organizers within the communities, and they try to articulate the same, and who try to help members of the organizations which they're part of and members of the communities which they're part of understand the political, the economic, and the social situation as it is, and to just connect that with what is going on in the communities. Basically just put a scientific aspect into this organizing and to this understanding of the realities that are going on within the communities.
Hizi pingu zimenifunga zikanishinda kusonga mbele, nashindwa kanta shinda hapa milele nahitaji ukombozi sahi, nahitaji ukombozi sahi.
Welcome back to another episode of Liberating Minds, and today we want to have a discussion on organic intellectuals and the Organic Intellectuals Network here in Kenya.
Hello viewers, I'm glad to be back again. My name is Maganga from the Revolutionary Socialist League.
Yes, thanks Maganga for being here. So Maganga, you're part of the Organic Intellectuals Network.
Yes.
You've been part of the editing team. And so today we just want to have a discussion. What's the Organic Intellectuals Network?
The Organic Intellectuals Network is a collective of activists, of revolutionaries, of organizers, of people working within our communities who are engaged in the efforts towards achieving liberation in general, not only for we the people here in Kenya, not only for we the people in the various communities that exist here in Kenya, but also for the people throughout the continent and even beyond. And how Organic Intellectuals Network operates is that it tries to facilitate or to help develop a cadre of organizers who are first of all rooted within our communities and who generate knowledge based on their experiences as organizers within the communities, and they try to articulate the same, and who try to help members of the organizations which they're part of and members of the communities which they're part of understand the political, the economic, and the social situation as it is, and to just connect that with what is going on in the communities. Basically just put a scientific aspect into this organizing and to this understanding of the realities that are going on within the communities.
Right. So the concept organic intellectual, we all understand it's a concept by Antonio Gramsci. Why was it important to borrow that concept from Antonio Gramsci?
Yeah, I think Antonio Gramsci is important because Antonio Gramsci, who was an organizer, a communist in Italy, organizing in Europe at a time when Europe was in crisis, and at a time when there was the threat of fascism taking over, and we all know the situation in Europe as it happened during the 1920s and 1930s. Antonio Gramsci is important because he developed, or rather he talked about this concept of the organic intellectual as an organizer who is rooted within the communities and someone who draws their knowledge from the experiences that are within the communities. This Antonio Gramsci contrasted with the academic intellectual who we know of today as someone based in the university, someone who views themselves as disconnected somehow from what is going on in the communities, someone who views themselves as the provider of solutions to people who are in the communities, someone who views themselves as, being the source of all knowledge in the society, and who therefore provides this knowledge to people in the society and in our communities. So that is the academic intellectual against whom Antonio Gramsci was talking about when he was mentioning the organic intellectual. The organic intellectual is someone who does not see themselves as disconnected from the community. The organic intellectual is someone who sees themselves as being part of the community and who sees their knowledge as merely a product of their interaction with the community, and also of the community just interacting with itself and with its environment. So if you are rooted in the community, if the organizing that you do is within the community, then you realize that it is not possible for you to come and say that you are bringing solutions to people in the society, in the community. You realize that it is only the people themselves who can generate solutions to the problems that they are facing. If you're working within the communities, then you realize that decisions cannot be made in a top-down manner regarding the future of the society, regarding the interpretation of the society on economics, on politics, and the like. You realize that decision-making has to be collective. You realize that it is only through the people coming together, through groups, through collectives, that they are able to actually correctly interpret what is going on in the society and to correctly come up with practical solutions to what has been facing our communities and our societies. So Antonio Gramsci becomes important because he's someone who wrote extensively about it, and someone who therefore just tries to expand or to expound what this concept of the organic intellectual is, and just shows how important it is for us to root our activity within the people and never without the people.
Indeed. Thank you for that elaborate explanation on organic intellectual and the role of played by Antonio Gramsci. So I've also been part of some of the writings within the network, but I would like for you to tell our viewers some of the publications that the Organic Intellectuals Network has published, and some of the publications that are also coming out later this year.
Yeah, the Organic Intellectuals Network has published reflections, a series of reflections on some books. And the first book that writers of the Organic Intellectuals Network reflected on was A Prison Notebook by Maina Wakinyati. Maina Wakinyati was an organizer, or is an organizer, and he was active in Kenya since the 70s. And he was, he's part of the left in Kenya, and he wrote about his experiences when he was arrested and detained by the then regime of, Daniel Moi and the Kanu dictatorship in the 80s. And comrades thought it very important to read that book and to write reflections on that. So that was done and that was published. The other book that comrades of the Organic Intellectuals Network reflected on was Pinto, The Unsung MATHARE, written by Shiraz Durrani. And this book is important because it serves as an inspiration for people who are organizing here in Kenya, because Pinto is someone who really just shows what it means to be an organizer here in Kenya. That book just tries to help show people the history of Kenya and the paths that Kenyans took right after independence, and the path that of course ought to have been taken. And therefore that's why we saw it important for people to reflect on that book. Another book that was published was by a comrade called Sam Gathanga. He's also a member of the Organic Intellectuals Network. The book is called MATHARE, an urban bastion of struggle, and it talks about the struggles that are present in MATHARE, which is an informal settlement here in Nairobi. A very important book because it shows exactly what organizers here in Kenya experience and what they think about what is to be done regarding organizing. Another book that comrades have reflected on is Silences in the NGO Discourse, written by Professor Issa Shivji of Tanzania. And that book is important because it talks about NGOs, which is really one of the emerging factors as regards organizing, not only here in Kenya and Africa, but in the globe, particularly for people in the global south. As you organize, there's always the question of NGOs and how they hamper our organizing and how they hamper that ability of the communities to organize themselves. And that's why people saw it important to reflect on that book. Our works that are upcoming include reflections on Mau Mau from within. And for these, comrades have been writing articles, and this is coming out soon. Comrades are also writing articles on the crisis of capitalism here in Kenya, where comrades are talking about the water crisis, the housing crisis, the food crisis, which is a very serious thing, and which has seen, an upsurge in levels of hunger and a diminishing of living standards here in Kenya, which already were at a very, very deplorable condition. So this is something that people will be talking about in this series of articles called Crisis of Capitalism, and this is something that our viewers should look up to and look forward to. And I think they're going to really help us better understand the environment we're working in and to better help us organize. Yeah. Okay.
I noticed something on the publications that you have mentioned, and why is the method of reflections key to the writers of the network?
Yeah, one of the ways in which we said we operate and we try to generate organic intellectuals within our communities is through writing. And one of the objectives of the Organic Intellectuals Network is to generate writers who can be able to interpret what is going on within our communities and to articulate that better. And we felt reflections are important because they show the level of understanding that comrades have had regarding their interactions with the communities. And also, they show where we are in terms of ideological clarity. You see, the people who participate in writing these articles for organic intellectuals are people who participate in ideological grounding on a regular basis. So when we have people writing reflections on these books that we've just mentioned, it shows the level of understanding that our comrades have had regarding the ideological sessions that have been going on. So if you properly went through ideological grounding, if you have been part of a study cell that is ongoing, then that will show itself when you write reflections on a certain book that we have agreed to write on. So that's why it is important for us to write this reflection. So we see this understanding, but also most importantly, we can see that the struggles within our communities are well articulated, and that the solutions which are being proposed are solutions which are arising out of our own interactions within our communities.
Yeah. Thank you, Maganga. Viewers, that has been discussion on the Organic Intellectuals Network, but also on the roles organic intellectuals play as discussed by Antonio Gramsci. So thank you, Mwaganga, for your contribution and being part of this. We'll see you in another episode.
Guys, watch, comment, subscribe, and share.
Because a people without the knowledge of their history is like a tree without its roots. Marcus Garvey.
Hizi pingu zimenifunga zikanishinda kusonga mbele, nashindwa kanta shinda hapa milele, nahitaji ukombozi sahi, nahitaji ukombozi sahi.